Depression. Depression and the empath. Depression and the neurodivergent. Depression and the HSP. For these type of people, depression can be a recurring theme. But here's my challenge. Is depression really a thing, or is it potentially this thing that I want to share with you as an option for you to consider? And if it is this different thing, it means that we then approach depression in a completely different way. Before I dive in to answering this question and addressing this topic about depression, here's my empath ask. A joint effort from myself and Confucius. Being an empath is not easy. It can be perceived as a burden. We have a level of heightened consciousness, heightened awareness, heightened sensitivity. And the current state of affairs, in particular in the United States of America, are heavy. Regardless of what side of the equation you are on, a lot of people are experiencing fear. A lot of people are experiencing hurt and doubt. Again, being an empath is a burden, but it is also a beautiful gift. And with that beautiful gift comes responsibility. So here is my empath ask of you. As an empath, go down your list of friends. The odds are that you have a large Rolodex, old school Rolodex, a small. Empaths have a small circle. But people who are either in your circle who are close to you or people that you know and you care for, they're not necessarily your friends, but you care for them. A lot of people are in need. Reach out. Let them know you are in their thoughts, because sometimes just knowing that somebody cares can elevate a spirit. And again, empaths, we have been given a gift, and that gift comes with responsibility. And now let's get back to the podcast. My name is Germaine. I'm author of the book, Pink is the Color of Empathy. What I'm going to share with you today is a major talking point in this book. I go in much deeper depth in this book. I've also written other books about wellness and mindset, 3 Simple Steps, and this book, Reaching Higher, 21 Ways to Keep Life Positive. So depression. I've had my bouts of depression over the years, and I went through a phase where I took antidepressants, and I was on an absolute minimum amount of antidepressants because I subscribed and believed in the concept that it's a hormonal imbalance and that this medication, I took Zoloft, and this is about 20 years ago. And the reason why I took Zoloft is I was experiencing major depression while I was in Cirque du Soleil. I felt that I had achieved this great level of success, but I had nobody to celebrate it with, and there was a level of such emptiness and loneliness and isolation that I related to nobody. And so, of course, the common thing was, well, go and see a doctor, and they prescribed Zoloft. And did it help? Yes, it did. It did help. But here I am 20 years later, 25 years later, having done a lot more reading and research and found alternative ways to manage depression and trying to understand what it stems from. So here are a couple of things that I want to share with you for you to take into consideration. And I'm here with my sidekick, Confucius, named after the great Chinese philosopher Confucius, filled with wisdom and insight. So when you think about yourself being depressed, and always, as always, this is a highly interactive medium. Now, for you to advertise and share your depression publicly is very courageous. But if you have that courage, let me know if you have experienced depression. If you are a neurodivergent, let me know. Do you suffer? That's also a term that I don't like. Are you ADHD? Are you ADD? Are you on the autistic scale, on the spectrum? Let me know what your condition is, and if you have experienced depression. And also, what did you do to manage it, and has it helped? Now, in terms of managing depression, there are other standard ways beyond medication. Exercise, getting additional sunlight, the vitamin D stimulates hormones through the eyes. That stimulates, I believe it is serotonin. Walking into nature, grounding, seeing open expanses of water, bonding with another person, with an animal, a pet, stimulates oxytocin, the bonding hormone, even chocolate. Chocolate has a hormone called phenylethylamine, which is it's more the in love hormone, but it makes us feel good. So there are all these ways of managing depression, but we always seem to go back to the antidepressant. But here's my big question. Is it really depression? Now, what exactly does that mean? Is it really depression? Because it's about understanding what depression could be. If you take the animal kingdom and you put any social animal in isolation, any social animal that is alienated from the herd, the pack, it will experience a sense of deep sadness, alienation, which will impact its well-being. You might have heard stories of animals dying of loneliness because they've been put into captivity and separated from their soulmate. We've seen stories of killer whales who are depressed. You've seen animals in zoos who create circles, constant circles out of stress, and they're not at a normal mental health state. And one could argue that they're experiencing a mental health crisis. But is it really a mental health crisis, or is it due to circumstance and environment? So if you compare that to humans, maybe you're not suffering from depression. Maybe it's simply because there's such a grave level of disconnect, of being alienated, of being misunderstood, that we feel alone, lonely, sad, which over time, when it's perpetuated, becomes what we call depression. And then so we tell ourselves, I've got a mental illness. I suffer from depression. Or maybe I suffer because this world is so emotionally superficial and disconnected, a narcissist, and I don't belong. I don't resonate on those frequencies. I feel alienated. I feel alone. I am sad, saddened. Everywhere I turn, I see judgment and hypocrisy and greed and selfishness. And I don't vibrate at that frequency. Therefore, I am a freak. And going back to the animal, being isolated when we are social beings can create what looks and feels like depression, but it's not a hormonal imbalance. The only hormonal imbalance is that we don't have a level of connectivity. So some of the hormones aren't stimulated purely by the fact of environment, rather than your brain lacks the ability or your body lacks the ability to develop these chemicals. Because one thing that I did notice in my moments of depression, when I did have a relationship that I felt safe and connected and there was relatability and understanding, my depression faded. Even while I was off medication. I was on medication for maybe 2 years and I gradually weaned my way off of it. By the way, I'm not suggesting you go off medication. This is what I'm sharing my experience, but you got to travel your own journey. But here's what I am asking you to do. Dig deeper, do more research as to understanding what you are dealing with so that you can start making more informed choices that resonate with you rather than just blindly subscribing to modern medicine. Because anybody with a realization as to modern medicine, big pharma, it's not about cure. It's about addiction and generating revenue. They're not there to make you better. They're there to addict you and keep you coming back, taking more and more and more. And that's where I started to ask the question, if the objective is, am I going to have to take this for the rest of my life? This doesn't feel right. Surely I shouldn't have to take an antidepressant for the rest of my life. That unto itself is depressing. So again, ask yourself, are you depressed or sad due to the environment, due to lack of disconnect? Now, how's the other aspect that I want to bring to the table? Going back to, and it relates to the disconnect, but now it's not so much depression. You might simply be grieving over an extended period of time. You are grieving lack of friendship. You are grieving lack of connectivity. You are grieving not fitting in. So is it grief or is it depression? And if it is grief, then maybe an antidepressant isn't the right thing. Maybe it's starting to evaluate your lifestyle. What can be changed in your lifestyle to start filling in the gaps that are making you feel a sense of grief? Maybe your grief is rooted in childhood trauma. You're grieving the pain of having absent parents. And so it looks and feels like depression, but you're really grieving. And if it is that you're grieving, then it's a question of understanding, managing the grief, rather than just relying on a pill that impacts your brain, I believe, on a negative sense, because the side effects, not even to mention the side effects, if a medication has suicidal thoughts as a side effect, I have to question this medication. It's an antidepressant, but it stimulates potentially suicidal thoughts. To me, that personally makes no sense. Again, I'm not telling you or inviting you to stop taking medication. I'm asking you to rethink and reevaluate and understand what is best for you. Have that conversation with your doctor. But do challenge, at least challenge, question Big Pharma. They're not necessarily out for your interest. I hope this has brought you value just by questioning and perceiving that there is potentially another narrative as to what you're experiencing as a neurodivergent. Neurodivergent can mean somebody on the autism spectrum, somebody, an empath, anybody basically who processes and experiences life in a way that is not neurotypical. You fall under the category, the label of neurodivergent, which means you're going to experience isolation, differentiation, disassociation, and it can stimulate feelings that look, sound, feel like depression. Once again, everybody, my name is Vital Germaine. I'm a life coach. If I can be of value, please reach out and see if I can help you along your journey of not only recovery, but of growth and self-actualization. Pink is the color of empathy. 3 simple steps: healthy, wealthy, and happy living, and reaching higher. 21 ways to keep life positive. Thank you for listening to the Sigma Empath podcast, the Rant Edition.